Just a reminder to vote in this week's Locals poll, where you decide what deck I take to Locals every single week. Without any further ado, I hope you enjoyed the video. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, and for today we have the profile for the deck we took to Locals a couple weeks ago, being Red Dragon Archfiend. We got third that week. I had made some edits since the ban list. Put a poll for the decks that were negatively impacted by the ban list, and this one won. We got third place. The deck did good. So, yeah. Here's a look to what it looks like on paper, then we'll get to the card by card. Alright, so starting off with the monsters, we're going to talk about the non-tuners first. So I'm starting off with 2 copies of Red Warg and then 1 Bone Archfiend. So Red Warg, basically if we normal summon one of our Resonators, we get to special summon it from our hand with its attack cut in half. It's a level 6 Fiend, so that can help you go into level 8s. It's basically all that's for. Bone Archfiend, we're only running 1 because he's extremely searchable in the deck, and he can bring himself back from the graveyard, so I wouldn't really run, or I don't think running more than 1 of him is really necessary. You might want to go to 2, maybe, but I don't know. I think 1 is fine. Next is 2 copies of Red Sprinter. So this one, when you normal or special summon it while you control no other monsters, you can special summon a Resonator from your hand or grave. So that one's, it's a pretty decent starter. And then next, 3 copies of Wandering King Wildwind. So basically, if you control a Fiend Tuner, you get to special summon him from your hand. This is a manga card for Jack. And basically, when you special summon him, you're locked into Synchros, but that's not an issue in this deck. And then he does have a grave effect as well, where you can banish him to search for a Fiend Tuner, which is going to be one of your Resonators. Oh, and also, the effect to special summon himself does not start a chain, so that's nice too. So it can't be, like, stopped by an Omni-Negate. Next, I'm also running 2 copies of Red Lotus King Flame Crime. So basically, this one can special summon itself if either A, you control a Fiend-type Tuner monster, or if your opponent controls a special summon monster. And then he does inflict 400 damage for every fire that's on your field when he's summoned, so that can kind of help when going into time a little bit. And then when he's used as Synchro material, you get to dump a normal trap from your deck to the graveyard. We'll get more into that later on. Next, 2 copies of Soul Resonator. So I'm running 2 because it is kind of similar with the Bone Archfiend. It's extremely searchable, and it's also really easy to get it back from your graveyard. So yeah, but so basically when it's summoned, you get to search for a level 4 lower Fiend monster. Then it does have a graveyard effect where you can banish it to protect your stuff when you have a Red Dragon Archfiend on the field. That's nice too, but it's mainly for the search. It's a decent starter for you. Next, going to the level 2 monsters, or level 2 tuners rather. So I'm running 2 Vision Resonator, 2 Red Resonator, and 3 Crimson Resonator. So, excuse me. So, we're going to go backwards here. So, Crimson Resonator, if you control no monsters, you can special summon it from your hand. That does start a chain. And then, if you activate any of its effects, then you're locked into Dark Dragon Synchros, which is important. We'll talk about that later. And then, if the only other monster on your field besides him is a Dark Dragon Synchro, you get special summon 2 other Resonators from your hand or deck. That's how you climb into your Red Supernova. Red Resonator, if it's normal summoned, you get to special summon a Fiend monster that's level 4 or lower from your hand. And then, if this is special summon, you get to target a monster on the field and gain life points equal to its attack. So again, kind of good for like time shenanigans if you need to. But then it can also serve as like a decent starter if you absolutely have to. Next is 2 Vision Resonator. So if there's a level 5 or higher Dark on the field, you can special summon it. That does not start a chain. And then when it's sent to the grave, you get to add a spell or trap that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend in its text. So that's good for getting whatever spell and traps you want. And then rounding out the monsters, we have 2 level 1 tuners being Chain and Synchron Resonator. Chain, when it's normal summon, you get special summon a Resonator from your deck. And then Synchron, if a Synchro monster is on the field, you get special summon it from your hand. And then when it's sent from the field to grave, you get to add a Resonator back from your graveyard to your hand. So that's nice. Just kind of resource recursion and everything. Next, excuse me. Sorry, my sinuses have been a little crazy here the past week or so. But moving on to the spells, we have 3 copies of Resonator Call. And so this one is basically a Rhoda. This one's basically a, as I said, it's basically a Rhoda for any Resonator that's not once per turn. So that's kind of, it's kind of what I was alluding to when I said that the Resonators are extremely searchable. Particularly Soul Resonator. You have 3 of this. You've got another card. Or actually 2 other cards I can search as well. Also running 1 Scarlet Security and 2 Synchro Rumble. So Scarlet Security, it's basically Harpy's Feather Duster if you have Red Dragon Archfiend on the field. Synchro Rumble is a monster reborn for either a tuner or one of your Dragon Synchros. And then it can also protect your Synchro monsters from being destroyed by battle or card effect by banishing it, so that's nice. Next, going to our 3 copies of Crimson Gaia. So this one, you get to add a card that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend in its card text from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So that includes Soul Resonator, Vision Resonator, any of the other spells or traps that mention Red Dragon Archfiend. And then when your Red Dragon Archfiend declares attack, you get to flip all your opponent's monsters face down. And then if a monster is destroyed by a battle or card effect, then you get special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. So yeah, this card, I mean, it searches / recurs, it books, and it reborns. So really great card there. Next, 2 copies of Absolute Power Force. So this is one of the cards that Crimson Gaia can search, in addition to your tuners and everything. So you get to target a Red Dragon Archfiend you control, and it gains 4 effects. So it gains 1,000 attack, or well, all of this is only applicable if it battles another monster. But it gains 1,000 attack. Your opponent can't activate anything. It does piercing, and all battle damage it inflicts is doubled. So the piercing, that's in tandem with Crimson Gaia's Book of Moon effect. So yeah, that's really big damage. I actually used this to facilitate the OTK against White Forest Runic in Game 2. We did end up losing the match, but it went into time, and it was a really, really good match. So props to that guy. He played really well. I played pretty decently also. So it was just overall a really good match. Next, 2 copies of Resonator Command. So you get to discard a Resonator and add any level 4 or lower Fiend So you can discard a Resonator you don't want to get a Resonator you do want, or you can use it to grab one of your non-tuners like Wandering King Wildwind. Next, moving on to the traps. So we're going to talk about the normal traps first. So I'm currently running one Synchro Call, one Red Cocoon, and one Red Rain. Red Rain is one of your primary targets for the sending with Flame Crime, or Red Lotus, as I like to call him, Red Lotus King. So basically, this one banishes everything on the field that is equal or lower, or excuse me, no. Yeah, anything that is lower than the monster on the field with the highest level. And you can only activate if you have a level 8 or higher Synchro monster. So, you know, obviously, the obvious thing is to, you know, get Red Supernova on the field. Then you get to banish everything that's level 12, or that's level 11 or lower. Bleh. And then if you Synchro Summon while it's in your graveyard, you get to add it back to your hand. Red Cocoon, you get to target one of your Dragon Synchros, namely Red Dragon Archfiend. You equip it to it. It negates the monster's effects during the battle phase, so that way if your opponent has any attack gaining effects for their monsters on the field, like during the damage step, that's a no-no. And then during the end phase of this is in the grave, because it'll sent there this turn, you get to revive Red Dragon Archfiend. Meaning this is actually searchable through Crimson Gaia. Alright, and then we have Synchro Call. So basically the reason I was running this is because it reborns a monster in your grave, special summon it, and then you get to immediately Synchro a Dark Dragon or Fiend Synchro monster. So the idea with this is if we were forced to end on, like, say like just this guy, right? We could reborn our tuner, go into Bane during our opponent's turn, and then get Scar Red's field wipe effect. That never came up. We actually never drew this card, I don't believe, or if we did, we didn't get to use it. I think I'm actually going to cut this and put in Time to Stand Up, because it's another potential target off of Flame Crime that has a good grave effect. So I think I'm going to cut this for that. Next, moving on to continuous traps. We have one red screen and two red zone. So red screen, it just says your opponent's monsters can't declare attacks. You have to pay 1,000 life points during your end phase, though, or you destroyed. And the paying actually isn't optional, so you can't just get rid of it whenever you want. And then, if you have a Red Dragon Archfiend on your field, you can send this to the grave to revive a tuner. So, that's nice. I usually do it just for stopping the attacks. And then, the 2 copies of Red Zone while Red Dragon Archfiend's on the field. Every time, or the first time... let me restart that. While you have Red Dragon Archfiend on the field, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you get to just pop any card on the field. And then you also get to target a banished Dark Dragon Synchro and special summon it. So something like Supernova that banishes itself for its effect. That's really nice. Okay. So that's it for the main deck. Now let's go to the extra deck. Alright, so starting off with the extra deck. Running 3 copies of our Red Rising Dragon. This, of course, is what allows us to Synchro Climb and everything. I'm not going to do a thorough explanation for it because pretty much everyone already knows what this card does. Next, going into some of our one-ofs. And these are the main changes I did with the ban list, or post-ban list. So we actually have some level 7s in here now also. So we've got one Kui Belt, or Kui Belt, however you say it, the Blade Dragon. One Dark Highlander, because Jack used this in the manga. And one Chaos King Archfiend, because he used it in the anime one time. So, Chaos King, when it declares an attack, you get to swap your opponent's attack and defense stats. So this is good for getting over something really big. Like I said, it's actually quite easy to summon in the deck because it takes a Fiend type tuner to summon, and all of your tuners are Fiends, so that's really nice. The only things that lock you are, see, there's three cards. There's Crimson Resonator, Red Rising Dragon, and the Bone Archfiend special summon effect. So yeah, so there are only 3 cards that lock you into the Dragon Synchros. So if you actually don't use one of those, you can go into some of your Fiends. Dark Highlander, as I said, this was used by Jack Atlas in the manga. And this is actually really good for a Synchro matchup because it literally just says neither player can Synchro summon. So this is really good for if you're going, like say you're going into game 2 or 3, right? And you can choose to go first, just turbo this guy out and say, all right, GG, basically. So yeah. And plus, look at the artwork. It's so cool. Then finally, Qui Belt. When it's Synchro Summoned, you get to target a card on the field and destroy it. And then if it's destroyed, you get to target a face-up monster on the field, and it can't attack for this turn. One other monster that I added in post-ban list, this one's actually a level 8. This is Groza, the Tyrant of Thunder. So he takes a tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner Fiend monsters. So again, playing into the Fiend side of things also. So during your opponent's main phase, you get to target an effect monster on the field, discard a monster, and if you do, negate that monster's effect till the end of the turn. Okay, so obviously that's a hard monster per turn. And then, if a Fiend monster is sent from the hand to the grave, so basically, if you discard any monster in your main deck in this build, you get to choose one of the following effects to do. Either make it to where it can't be destroyed by battle, can't be destroyed by card effect, or can't be targeted by card effects. So this is really good. Like you normal summon one of your Resonators, Special or Red Warg, climb into this, and then you can go into some of your other things if you need to. Or if you want to, say, on like turn 2 or 3 or something, then summon this guy for the extra negate. That's fine. I actually use this. I summoned this turn 1 against the Stardust Synchron deck, and I use this to negate Junk Speeder. So that was nice. Alright, and then moving on to the what you would expect from the Red Dragon Archfiend stuff. We, of course, have 2 copies of the original Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Scarlight, and 1 Scarred, or Scarred, however you're supposed to say it. And all of these are valid targets for things like, whatchamacallit, Absolute Power Force. These are targets that you can use for that. These 2 are treated as Red Dragon Archfiend while on the field or in the graveyard. I think everyone pretty much already knows what these guys do, so I'm not going to spend any more time on them. Then with our higher level synchros, we've got Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane, Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, and Red Supernova Dragon. So starting off with Abyss, it provides a negate. Enough said. Bane, this one's level 10. Abyss is level 9. This one, you get to tribute a monster to revive one of your Red Dragon Archfiend monsters. Then it also gets tuners from your deck when it inflicts battle damage, so that's really nice. Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, this one's a little more situational, and it's a little slightly harder to summon. I mean, technically you could do it instead of the Supernova play, but why would you do that? Because Supernova is Supernova. But yeah, so basically, if you get this guy on the field, and it's possible, Although this typically isn't one of the things you typically go for. This one is just because you can, or because if you just absolutely want to. But this one's not like in your standard combo, as it were. But yeah, so he gets to destroy everything else on the field besides himself during the main phase 1. And then during either player's battle phase, when a spell or trap is activated, you can negate it, and then he gains 500. So, yeah. And plus, his artwork is awesome. And finally, you know him, you love him, Red Supernova Dragon. 3 tuners plus a non-tuner synchro monster. It gains 500 attack for each tuner in your graveyard. Can't be destroyed by card effects. And then when your opponent either declares an attack or activates a monster effect, you can banish him and all cards your opponent controls. And then he revives himself during your next end phase. So like I remember one time during a practice game, I summoned him, and then my opponent at the end of my main phase activated Nibiru. I used this to banish himself. So the Nibiru fizzled, and then during my end phase, he brought himself back. Because it says your next end phase. So I thought that was kind of cool. Because I actually didn't know, like I mean, I knew it was your own end phase, but I had never thought about it in that context before. And so I was like, oh yeah, that is how that works, isn't it? But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. It's a really, really fun deck. And there are lots of variations you can build of this deck. So like, don't take this as like, this is the way you have to do it. This is just my version, because this is like a modern day Jack Atlas kind of thing. Because I like to do things based on like, you know, the show, characters with their legacy support and all that stuff. But yeah, that's going to be it for the deck profile. I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, vote on the logos poll, that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.